Tomorrow we will all know the memo will be out and the great constitutional debate might be settled or just starting up. Welcome, everybody. I'm Neil Cavuto, and Fox on top of a battle royale over the release of something the FBI director himself has said will not be a good idea. The president thinks otherwise. Tomorrow we'll get to see for ourselves what all the fuss is about, whether any parts of it are going to be redacted, corrected, cleaned up. I don't even know. I can tell you real quickly before we get to my buddy Blake Berman at the White House is that Wall Street doesn't seem to care. More on that in a second. To Blake Berman now at What's at Stake. Blake.
Hi there, Neil. And President Trump has indeed read this memo. He is, according to sources, expected to declassify it. What would happen after that is it would then be sent back over to the Hill, to the House Intelligence Committee, and they would be the ones to make this public for all to see. We are led to believe as soon as tomorrow morning. The president earlier today, he went over to the congressional retreat in West Virginia to address Republicans there. He did not comment on this memo or on his thinking at all. But the House Speaker Paul Ryan said it does serve a purpose.
What it is the Congress's legitimate function of oversight to make sure that the FISA process is being used correctly, and that if it wasn't being used correctly, that needs to come to light and people need to be held accountable.
However, the FBI has said it has grave concerns with the memo. The FBI Agents Association today, in fact, publicly backed the FBI head, Chris Wray. And the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee says that this memo is being used to target the FBI and the Department of Justice.
This memo is really a spin designed to tar the FBI and tar the Department of Justice.
Neil, as you know, this has been highly political. There has also been a debate back and forth starting last night into today among Democrats and Republicans about wording that was changed within the memo. The top Democrat in the House, Nancy Pelosi, today called for the Intel Committee Chairman Devin Nunes to be removed from his post. Paul Ryan was asked about it. He said this is getting political, and he thinks that Democrats are simply trying to distract. Neil?
Do we know whether Republicans are open to releasing the Democratic memo to that memo?
Depends on who you ask. There are some who have come forward today and said, hey, look, if you're going to release this Republican memo put forth by the House Intelligence Committee, which of course is run by, or at least headed by Republicans, then put forward the Democratic memo, which Democrats earlier this week said they too want to put this forward. So it's really a depend on who you ask kind of scenario. And there is the argument to be made, if you're going to put one forward, might as well put the other. And Democrats, Neil, would have a completely different take on the whole thing.
Yeah, that is the way that politics thing goes. Thank you very much, my friend Blake Berman.
You got it.
Over at the White House. Well, certainly Democrats are mighty upset about this and the release of this memo, but it's coming. But again, everything has its moment, right? Remember when they weren't too happy about the FBI themselves? Let's go back in time.
When the director of the FBI, Mr. Comey, released that letter 2 Fridays ago, he became the leading Republican political operative in the country.
I was appalled by what Director Comey did.
Wittingly or unwittingly, what he did was wrong.
He owes not only Secretary Clinton, but the American people an explanation for what appears to be an appalling action.
So this is like a Molotov cocktail just thrown into a very explosive arena.
Wait a minute. What's going on here? Attorney Lisa Giovinazzo is with us, former CIA officer Mike Baker. Lisa, I know politics, I know this game works, but I mean, the faux rage is beginning to get to be faux much here.
Definitely it is. And we're seeing both sides, right? The FBI is apolitical, but all of the challenges seem to come from a political angle. It's something that the American people just simply don't want to see, but it's something that keeps getting highlighted. The Dems want to challenge the FBI when it's good for them, and now the Dems want to challenge the GOP challenging the FBI. How about everybody just lets the FBI do their work? But of course, we do have this question. We all are interested in whether or not they're doing it under the guidance of the law. And we have a right to question it, because certainly under Comey, I think that the integrity of the FBI has been challenged.
You know, and I think, Mike Baker, you've been on this number before talking about these are great institutions, sound institutions populated by men and women who put, a lot of times their lives on the line for our protection and for our good. So I don't doubt that, in New York second. But this idea that it would be such a bad idea to reveal potential biases that set up an investigation into a candidate, whether that candidate was a Democrat or Republican, and the full light of day, have at it, debate it, go ahead, go through it. What do you think?
No, absolutely. And look, I've got a long history of speaking out in favor of protecting sources and methods and classified information. That's absolutely necessary. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about, as has been said, a very highly political situation. And, both sides are guilty. Republicans, Democrats, they're both guilty of either lionizing the Bureau at times or demonizing them based on their own political self-interest. But in this situation, a couple of things. One, what they should be doing, release the memo, release the Democrats' memo, get the IG from both the Bureau and the DOJ to then sit down.
The Inspector General.
I think yeah, exactly, the Inspector General in a publicized opportunity to explain the context, because the other part of this is nobody should be under the mistaken impression that when they release this memo that somehow it's going to resolve anything. Both sides are going to continue to pick and choose whatever satisfies their own particular belief and argument at the time. And so what we need is context and further explanation. So the memo by itself is just going to further muddy, this is my opinion, further muddy the waters. There's going to have to be a concerted effort. And I think the Inspector Generals from both the FBI and the DOJ are in the ideal positions to then sit down and in a very, as transparent as possible, again, without jeopardizing sources, methods, classified information that's national security, explain to the American people so that we can set this aside. They have to have belief in these institutions.
Lisa, one of the things that's come up here is that the president is in favor of releasing this memo as a way to discredit the Russia probe. And there are others who argue that something like this would at least indicate bias on the part of an organization that had it out for him early on. I don't know if that's true or not, or even the fact that the president endorses discrediting the FBI, period. I do think, though, it calls into question, though, whether we should ever question institutions. We have a very rich, robust past of questioning the information we've gotten out of institutions that might have misled us. The Pentagon at the time of the Vietnam War, for example, and the release of the Pentagon Papers. Many in the media championed that, as did those who were concerned on both sides of the aisle about maybe exaggerated body counts and the rest. What do you make of that?
I think we unequivocally have a right to challenge any agency. It's not the agency itself. In this case, we're challenging how they've carried out their specific task of getting, FISA court warrants. Of course, we can challenge that. As I said, the integrity of the agency is something that Americans have to feel comfortable with, and obviously they don't. But one other thing I want to say, I don't necessarily agree that the 10-page rebuttal should be displayed publicly. I do agree that the memo should go out. That memo was prepared, and that memo was part of the House Intelligence Committee viewing a memo and coming up with their resolution. The rebuttal is, in fact, a rebuttal. It's a 10-page document that was prepared after the notion that it could be made public was to come out in order to rebut the conclusions of this committee. I think we need to see the memo from the committee. I think that memo was the resolution. That's why we have a House Intelligence Committee. And then we can see the fallout from there. But that's basically just like trying to cut it off at its legs and trying to...
But have at it. I mean, have at it. Real quickly, Mike Baker, the question is whether we can trust our intelligence agencies. Those are there to protect us. You've indicated in the past repeatedly we can, but it's good to shine a light on cases where a couple of individuals might not subscribe to that, right?
No, absolutely. A government oversight of the institutions such as the CIA, the FBI, NSA, absolutely critical, and it demands that Congress is inquisitive, curious, aggressive in their questioning, and that to the degree they can, again, without jeopardizing national security issues, they're transparent with the American public. So, I take the point about, is the rebuttal, is the Democrat memo, is that something that should be released? But frankly, at this stage of the game, we just get it all on the table with an opportunity to explain it. And, the Democrats like to talk about the cleansing beauty of sunlight. Well, let's get some sunlight on this and then move on to the issues that are really important to this country.
All right, guys, thank you both very, very much. I do appreciate it. A lot of this will be known tomorrow. We'll see. All right.